Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Girdhari Radha Vinod Bihari Radha Govinda Ki Dali Bhavishtam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararatatare Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Esi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararatatare Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupad Paramahansa Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj Ki Jai Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupada Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Maharaj Ki Jai Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupada Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vigyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupada Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shri Radhe Goswami Maharaj Ki Dalila Bhavishtam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararatatare Astatara Sata Shri Srimad Param Gurudev Jagat Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Maha Bhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shakta Goswami Satchidananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shri Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya Srila Baladevi Bhushan Prabhu Ki Shri Rasika Acharya Srila Vishwanath Bhagavati Thakur Ki Shri Narottam Shri Vashamananda Prabhu Trai Ki Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Shat Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Srup Damodar Rai Ramananda Shri Gaura Parashad Binda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Das Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Gosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shirasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Navadvip Maya Pradam Ki Ganga Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jamuna Devi Ki Shrimati Purnamasi Yomai Ki Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Gopishwara Mahadev Ki New Braj Dham Ki Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Surasan Chakra Purushottam Dham Tota Gopinath Ki Narasingha Bhagavan Ki Bhakta Pravara Prahlad Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Samagata Bhakta Vinda Ki Shinitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Whoa. Wow, what a treasure. We still so much of this history in the after the Jaladuta diary and the New York diary. Have you read that? Have you looked at it?
I've heard from you.
Reading some of it, yeah. Oh, it's just a wealth.
But we didn't hear yet his, was it a letter to
Hanuman Prasad Podar. Yeah, we can do that.
Gita Press.
Gita Press, yeah.
In Rishikesh, that's the biggest bookstore in Rishikesh.
Yeah, and Prabhupada is giving his own personal introduction to him, telling him who he is.
Oh.
Yeah, in that letter. I was just glancing at it. So... Yes. Sumati Murarji, you read her letter.
Yes.
The other night you read that.
Yes.
And then, yeah, the next letter is the Hanuman Prasad Podar. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacharya Satane Om Jnanativirangasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Chishe Nama He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vrindai Tulsi Dembai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishto Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtotarashata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm offering my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Siksha Guru Varga and to the lotus feet of all my Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, now, the following is an excerpt. We're reading Srila Prabhupada's Jaladuta diary book, which has been printed in the past by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Both of his diaries, his Jaladuta diary coming across on the Atlantic Ocean, as well as his other diary in New York while he was alone in New York. These are very, very important documents, extremely important. Just imagine, 1,000 years from now, these documents will be there to show how it was done. Historical documents.
Just think if Jesus kept a diary.
Yeah. But I mean, nowadays so much emphasis is put on the founding fathers of the United States and what they went through and what were their thought processes and, to establish this unique new nation that's going to have freedom and see everyone equally, And it's like a religion, It's like we're Americans. No, we have to fight to defend. But Srila Prabhupada came to, devastate, to annihilate all of this misconceptions and ignorance on the bodily level. Truly a spiritual revolution. And he told that. I want to start a spiritual revolution. So he wasn't hiding it. But yet, persons who are on the material level, it's like invisible to them. But yet, on the universal level, it's the most important thing that is happening in the universe. That a pure Vaishnava who has his eternal relation, especially coming in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is introducing to the whole world their opportunity to become free from the cycle of birth and death and to embrace their eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord and take part in the eternal joyful activities of Harinam Sankirtan. And Srila Prabhupada, he told it in such a simple way. I was watching on that Hare Krishna People movie.
The Hare Krishna People movie, which is an early...
No. The Hare Krishna. The mantra,
yes.
The message, I forget. And the Swami who started it all. Yeah, because somebody sent me a link to it. And yesterday when I was in town, I was taking a rest and I pressed on and it's the Hare Krishna movie. I've seen it before once or twice, but it was so relishable. I was just sitting there for the first half hour of the movie, just so many beautiful sections from Srila Prabhupada and the way that they arranged Prabhupada's glorification by his disciples and others who had met him. Even Sally Agarwal is there in her old age. I wonder if she's still, she passed away recently or something, I heard.
Yeah, I heard that.
I was thinking about that Gopal Agarwal who was, and then Braj, who was their son. I've never heard anything. Have you heard anything? I don't know, maybe if they stayed together in their marriage or what. But that would be interesting.
It would be.
Yeah, I've never even seen a picture of Gopal Agarwal himself. He could have passed away by now, but...
He took his first steps, Braj.
Yeah, Prabhupada's holding his hand in that photo, which is, I think, could be the very first photo. Yeah. And what was Sally Agarwal was telling in the very short excerpt, they had her there, a couple of different real short excerpts, like 20 seconds long, And in the first one, she was expressing how amazing Prabhupada looked. Like she's got the eyes of a materialistic person who's just still eating meat, but I guess she was a pious lady, Christian or whatever. But she had the opportunity to associate directly in her home and take the Mahaprasadam cooked by Srila Prabhupada every day for 3 weeks. And she marked, on the first, one of the first movies made, she's, being interviewed and she's talking about how she enjoyed that more than she enjoyed anything else in her life. Yeah. And how he came and cooked and we also ate what he cooked, And she's the one that remarked that his smile was oceanic. Remember? Oceanic, just oceanic when he would smile. So she was quite, perceptive, yeah. That Srila Prabhupada was not an ordinary person. And she was able to perceive his extraordinary, physiognomy, his transcendental physiognomy, and his movements and his all of that, We've all noticed that when being in the presence of Srila Prabhupada, how unbelievable. It's like every move, So, anyway, he's actually writing this letter on the 5th of February in 1970 from Los Angeles to the Gita Press, Gorakhpur. My dear Baiji, Hanuman Prasad Podar.
Oh, so he calls him brother.
Yeah, Baiji. He might have been Gujarati, I think, because they use Baiji a lot. He says, please accept my obeisances. So he's treating him as a Vaishnava, and he is a Vaishnava. Please accept my obeisances. I hope by this time you have received my acknowledgement, dated yesterday for your letter, dated 26 January 1970. As you want to publish a comprehensive article about my activities in the Kalyana, probably their magazine, I think it is proper to give you a short history of my coming to the Western world. Sometime in the year 1922, when I was acting as a manager of Dr. Bose's Laboratory Limited, I was fortunate enough to meet my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajacacharya 108 Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. And on the very first meeting with His Divine Grace, he asked me to preach the message of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world. At that time, I was a young man and a nationalist, admirer of Mahatma Gandhi and C.R. Das. Who's that? C.R. Das. Anyway. So I replied to him at that time, who would care for the message of Lord Chaitanya while we are a subject nation? In this way, I had some argument with my spiritual master, and at the end I was defeated. But at that time, because I was already married, I could not take his words very seriously. In this way, I passed on as a householder, but by the causeless mercy of my Divine Master, that, that order of preaching was impressed on my heart. I was initiated regularly in 1933 at Allahabad, when Sir Malcolm Haley, the then governor of UP, opened our Gaudiya Math branch there. Then, in 1936, my spiritual master left this world, leaving a message for me that it would be better for me to preach in English language. Remember that? He said a fortnight before his departure, he received his reply. And that's the message he gave. It would be better for me to preach in English language. So, I was thinking very seriously. And then, as late as 1944, I started my paper Back to Godhead. And gradually, in 1954, 10 years later, I retired from my family life, and I began to live alone in Mathura Vrindavan. In 1959, that's 5 years later, I was awarded sannyas by one of my god brothers, His Holiness B.P. Keshav Maharaj. Then I began translating Srimad Bhagavatam in 1960. And perhaps in 1961, I was your guest in the Gita Bhagicha. You were very kind to help me partially for publishing my first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam through the Dalmia Charitable Trust. With great difficulty, I then published the second and third volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam until 1965, when I prepared myself to come to this country with some books. With great difficulty, I was able to get the P form passed by the Controller of Foreign Exchange, and some way or other, I reached Boston on 17 September 1965. I was thinking while on board the ship, Jaladuta, why Krishna had brought me to this country. I knew that Western people are too much addicted to so many forbidden things according to our Vedic conception of life. So, out of sentiment, I wrote a long poetry addressing Lord Krishna as to what was his purpose in bringing me to this country. So that's the prayer on the Jaladuta, which Nishchinta Didi read, right? Yeah, on Prabhupada's day. At that time, I was sponsored by a friend's son, Gopal Agarwal, who is settled up in this country by marrying an American girl, Sally. I was their guest, and I feel very much obliged to Gopal and his wife, Sally, for their nice treatment and reception. I was with them for 3 weeks in Butler, near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then I came to New York. I was getting some money by selling my Srimad Bhagavatam, thus I was maintaining myself in New York. And after some time I rented one apartment at number 171st Street West. But after a few months, all my things, typewriter, tape recorder, books, were stolen.
That was just in an office.
In what?
That was just an office.
Yes.
An apartment. But he was living in the office?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so just to make it clear, he lived with Dr. Mishra, I think, initially, or maybe Dr. Mishra had also arranged a separate. I'm not sure, I have to look at that. But nevertheless, he was always living alone in some office building, and the rooms, they simply had the office room and a bathroom with a toilet and a sink, that's it, no shower, anything. So he used to walk from there to Dr. Mishra's place. And there he would take his bath, there he would cook, like that. Yeah. And also he would hold his evening programs that he would advertise in that room.
I'm sure Dr. Mishra loved it because he was probably missing such wonderful
Yes,
design.
he loved it. It said it, it mentioned it. So after some time I rented one apartment at number 171st Street West. Now, he's calling it an apartment, but I'm pretty sure it was just an office room. So he said then, but after a few months, all my things, typewriter, tape recorder, books, were stolen. And then, for some time, one of my students gave me shelter at Bowery Street. The belly of the beast, huh? I then rented one storefront and an apartment at 26 2nd Avenue for $200 per month. It's a lot of money in those days. Yeah. But without any source of income. I started my classes, and sometimes on Sundays, I used to chant Hare Krishna mantra in Tompkins Square Park from 3 to 5 p.m. During this time, all the young boys and girls used to gather around me. Sometimes poet Ginsberg would come to see me. Sometimes a reporter from the New York Times came to see me. And in this way, the Hare Krishna mantra chanting became very popular on the Lower East Side. So in this way, the younger generation became attracted. And gradually, many branches were opened, one after another. After New York, the next branch was opened in San Francisco, then in Montreal, then in Boston, and in Los Angeles. We have now the following centers in the States: Canada, Europe, Japan, and Australia. That's the end of his letter. There's probably more, but... So then there's just a little short biographical sketch, I think, done by the BBT, included in this book, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and just tells the overview, how he also constructed centers in India, all of his achievements. I think that's the same thing that they have in the various BBT books about the author. Yes. Now begins The Beginning. It's the title, the 1966 New York Journal. Introduction. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada had been in America for 4 months when he began this 1966 diary of his daily notes and accounts. So that means from like middle of September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, so middle of January is when he began his diary and daily notes. So during the previous year, Srila Prabhupada, now we've just begun, just as you came in, we've begun the New York diary.
I said I was late.
Yeah. So during the previous year, Srila Prabhupada had kept a record of his voyage from India, which has been published by the Bhaktivedanta Archives as the Jaladuta Diary. Srila Prabhupada later described the early part of the 1966 period, recounted in this diary as one of hardship. Having no money or followers, nor the means to live independently, and often alone with limited opportunities for preaching, Srila Prabhupada sometimes contemplated going back to India. It's there in the movie. I was just telling that yesterday when I was in town, I checked on my phone and somebody had sent me the link for the Hare Krishna movie, the one that was recently made by Yaduvar. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Oh my God, you have to see that.
The other day, and then I just was like, oh my God, it's like 10 o'clock, I have to go to sleep, I can't start this.
Oh, it's amazing.
I really do want to see it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that link, I'll send it to you.
Wait,
But I think if
Yadubar
you just type, huh?
Yadubar who did Badger?
Yes.
Yeah, that he's the photographer. Him and his wife Vishaka
Yeah, I remember.
were and are really the main photographers and videographers of ISKCON to this day.
They were professional before they came to the movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, they were, yeah. Because I read Vishaka, in the library we have Vishaka's memoirs.
Yeah, you'd like that.
Yeah.
That is well written. She's an excellent writer. But she tells about how in Prabhupada's personal association in India, right? It took her practically 1 year to melt because she was so but then one day it just all broke through. Then she just surrendered to Prabhupada. But she had his association while they were in India, and she was still keeping her sense of identity as a photographer, and I'm just doing this temporarily and like that. But when Yaduvara said, I'm taking initiation from Swamiji and you can do what you want, then she had to seriously think. Yeah, anyway. So, but I think if you type it in also.
It's called Hare Krishna what?
Yeah, it's called
Hare Krishna,
the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it
Oh,
all.
I can probably, yeah, I'm sure I can just find it.
Yeah. And it's available in a number of places. All right. Oh, so what I was doing is, in the beginning of that film there's a lot of audio excerpts of Srila Prabhupada. It's very dramatically produced. Your heart goes out to Srila Prabhupada, even an ordinary person watching that, how he struggled, Having no money or followers, nor the means to live independently, and often alone with limited opportunities for preaching, Srila Prabhupada sometimes contemplated going back to India. And that's also there, that I would go to the docks and I would check. Srila Prabhupada's resolve is evidenced by the purchase of his first tape recorder, a major expenditure for him. He started recording his classes, kirtans, and bhajans. He wrote in his journal, quote, "There was no response of the visitors invited to come and join Hari Katha this evening at 7:30 p.m. But I alone executed the kirtan ceremony with my TR, means tape recorder, till 10 p.m. Srila Prabhupada's prescience, what does that mean? Foresight. Srila Prabhupada's prescience in preserving his spoken word has resulted in a permanent legacy of over 2,000 hours of invaluable tape recordings. Despite austere circumstances, Srila Prabhupada had faith in his mission, and in the end was rewarded with unimaginable successes. The Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, the official biography, published in several languages, portrays many of these extraordinary events. However, the author of the Leelamrita did not know about the existence of this 1966 diary, and so omitted some episodes that Srila Prabhupada had dutifully recorded. The beginning, the 1966 journal of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that's the official name, this presents for the first time the exact sequence of these seminal events and the specific details of the initial year of Srila Prabhupada's mission to the West. We have divided the journal section of the book into 3 chapters, corresponding to the 3 places where Srila Prabhupada stayed in Manhattan. A summary for each chapter has been added to provide readers with insights into the events described. The editors have combined entries that are brief on the same page. Pages of the journal that do not contain entries by Srila Prabhupada are not reproduced. Each month begins with a highlights page that contains short excerpts from some of the pages of the diary to give an at-a-glance view of the month. The epilogue narrates what happened to the Matchless Gifts shop after Srila Prabhupada left in the beginning of 1967 to go to the West Coast. How ISKCON New York eventually acquired the hallowed storefront, and the vibrant preaching activities presently taking place are also depicted. And we can add here, then in 1996, another exalted pure devotee of Krishna came to that very Matchless Gift shop and glorified Srila Prabhupada. You can see the videos, it's on YouTube.
I saw a video recently, I think of 96, not of Gurudev at Matchless Gifts, but at Tompkins Square Park.
Okay.
Maybe it was part of, like, it was
It is, yeah.
just a clip of a longer...
He went first to Tompkins Square Park. That was filmed by Rasaraj, and also in the 26 2nd Avenue. He came there just after that. So that was a historical day. It was the first and only time also that I had been there to that shop. I had been at 26 2nd, at Tompkins Square Park one time, maybe 71 or 72, when we drove to see Srila Prabhupada in New York. And when we drove into New York, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and we decided, let's go to Tompkins Square Park. And it was at nighttime, and we were just paying our obeisances at the tree and all of that. So, yes. Then there was also a building that Srila Prabhupada stayed in, that Srila Gurudev stayed in, a few blocks from there. It was acquired by Kirtanananda.
The Bhakti Center.
Bhakti Center. Is that the same place where they now have the Bhakti Center in
Yes.
Acha? Oh, okay. In the Lower East Side.
And so many of Gurudev's followers go there and even lead kirtan.
Okay, so it's like a 4-story building, I heard, and
Pradyumna Pandit lives there.
oh, he lives there. Wow. Cool. Now, very few pictures of Srila Prabhupada were taken in 1966 in New York. Only the photos from newspaper articles and some excerpts from amateur 16mm films exist in the archives. That's put into that film, Yodavar's film. Because most of these pictures were published previously in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 2, we have included some pictures taken after 1966, which we feel evoke the mood of that year. This book includes other items of interest, such as letters written to Srila Prabhupada cited in the journal. So he's responding to different letters. The replies to these letters are published elsewhere, so they are not included. So in Prabhupada's letters book. Wherever possible, we identify the persons Srila Prabhupada names in his journal. The first newspaper account about Srila Prabhupada and the impact of his activities are replicated. Also appended is a poem by Hayagriva Das, because it expresses the spirit of the early days on 2nd Avenue. It was to the care of Balimardhan Das that this diary, as well as Srila Prabhupada's 1965 Jaladuta diary, devolved in the early 70s. He deposited both diaries in a secured storage. And when the Bhaktivedanta archives expressed interest in publishing them, Balimardhan lent the original books for reproduction. Eventually, these will be preserved and permanently displayed. We gratefully acknowledge Janava Devi Dasi for her paintings. Janava, I wonder if it's the Janava, who is married to Nanda Kishore, I think.
Yeah, she's an artist.
Yeah,
The original artist in the team with Shamara.
yeah, I'm just wondering if her paintings are if she's that Janava Devi. And also Bhaktin Alexandra for her drawings, Maya Priya Devi Dasi for the design and layout of the book, Nandi Mukhi Devi Dasi for the epilogue, Brahmananda Das for editorial assistance, Bhaktin Martha for the events calendar, and all others who have helped to produce this publication. The beginning, the 1966 Journal of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is a personal chronicle of the founding of the Hare Krishna movement, the Western branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. This book is a true annal of the courage and purity of a saint, and we trust that it will inspire all who read it. So chapter 1, starting January 19th through March 31st. It's like 2.5 months. So this is the Upper West Side summary. So this is the summary, as they said they do before the class. On January 19th, when the first entry occurs, Srila Prabhupada is living in the rear rooms of the yoga studio of Dr. Ram Murthy Mishra at Suite 501, 100 West 72nd Street on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So I guess from the time that he left from Butler, which would have been end of September, or just beginning of October.
More like almost mid-October.
Yeah, okay, so mid-October, then November, December, January. So about 3 months, it may be that he was there with him in that apartment.
I believe I remember him saying that he stayed at some other apartment on Riverside Drive and also up in his country ashram. So I think he was being hosted pretty well by Dr. Mishra time in his personal quarters.
Yeah, for sure. He was going regularly to the country ashram. I'm not sure if Dr. Mishra was always there when he went, but there's some good footage. That's the first black and white footage of Srila Prabhupada in the West is there at that country ashram. And I was just telling Braj today before he left, I said, someday I'm going to go out there because that ashram of Dr. Mishra, the devotees said that the location of their place in Ellenville is near, not so far from there. And the other thing is that the Woodstock festival site is also in that area.
We were just there when I was there on my last day. Avadut Maharaj went out to the Woodstock site because there was a Grateful Dead concert. So
really?
We ended up going out there and doing like Western Center.
Oh, no kidding!
Yeah, and I'd been to Woodstock before, but not to the actual location, just to the town.
But this one was the actual location?
This is the location, yeah.
Ah, what year was that?
When I went out just now for the Hare Guitar Festival out there.
Oh, okay.
So just a couple weeks.
And they had the Grateful Dead playing. So that must have been one of the you know, like annual, sometimes they have the annual festival there.
And then it's for distribution of kirtan.
Yeah.
That was a big turning point in my life. Yeah. I was only 17, actually just turning 17. All right, so on January 19th, when the first entry occurs, Srila Prabhupada is living in the rear rooms of the yoga studio of Dr. Ram Murthy Mishra at Suite 501, 100 West 72nd Street on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Were you living in Manhattan for a while? Mm-hmm. Was that where you and Kishori were living?
Yeah, we were living in Upper Manhattan.
Okay.
Where?
Like 172 in Port Washington, so pretty high up.
Was it the Upper West Side?
No.
Not like Harlem.
No, we were in Washington Heights.
How long did you live there?
3 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I know all these places.
Yeah, your stomping ground.
Yes, it was interesting, like walking around New York, especially the Lower East Side. You're just, going about your day, and every once in a while they hit you like, Prabhupada walked here.
Right.
This is Prabhupada's foot dust. It's amazing.
Did you see 22nd Avenue? Okay, so now daily from that location, Srila Prabhupada walks several blocks to Dr. Mishra's residential apartment at 33 Riverside Drive to bathe and to cook his meals. Yeah, so he was living in the office suite. But it says he was living in the rear rooms of the yoga studio. Oh, okay. So the yoga studio must have been in that office building, and then these couple of rooms were there in the rear. Okay. So he would walk to Dr. Mishra's residential apartment at 33 Riverside Drive to bathe and to cook his meals. So in the evenings, Srila Prabhupada holds classes for interested persons. Some of Dr. Mishra's students attend these classes. During the day, Srila Prabhupada is active in selling his books to bookstores. He writes to newspapers and radio stations and organizes occasional speaking engagements. He also writes to large charitable foundations like the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. And on the weekends, Srila Prabhupada joins Dr. Mishra on yoga retreats at the Anand Ashram in Monroe, in upstate New York. Here he conducts kirtans, which the students appreciate. By the way, did you know that Satyaraj, he contacted me many months ago because he's actually writing an entire book of the history of the New York Temple. Did you know that? From the very founding of it and up to the present. The history of the New York Temple. He interviewed me on the phone because I was there for 2 years, 73 to 75. So, here in the Ananda Ashram, he conducts kirtans, which the students appreciate. And on that film, and there's a lady, one of the students of Mishra, Dr. Mishra, who is telling her memories of Prabhupada. And she says there was a running joke between Prabhupada and Dr. Mishra, and she said that they were very loving and affectionate together. That's the way they perceived it. But sometimes Prabhupada would have some contention, because of course he was a Mayavadi, and Prabhupada would sometimes be injecting. But there was a running thing that he would be invited by Dr. Mishra to perform kirtan, right? And inevitably, she said, Prabhupada would go into this deep trance-like state, which everybody could see, and he would go on for like an hour, hour and a half. So when Dr. Mishra would be inviting, so Swamiji, you can do kirtan, a few minutes. And Prabhupada said, yes, a few minutes. But inevitably, he would always do that. Now, Srila Prabhupada is looking for a building to purchase as a Radha Krishna temple. He's got no money, but he's looking for a building to purchase. He hopes this will be financed by Sir Padampat Singhania, a wealthy industrialist in Kanpur, India. Now, Srila Prabhupada contacts the Salvation Army to arrange the transfer of funds from India to America. He also writes to his godbrothers in India to petition the President of India to sanction the foreign exchange. This endeavor occupies Srila Prabhupada for almost 5 months. On February 2nd, Srila Prabhupada purchases a tape recorder to record classes, kirtans, and bhajans. He pays the equivalent of 1 month's rent. On February 20th, he completes tape recording the Gita-upanishad introduction. Years later, this becomes the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Srila Prabhupada tries to enlist the aid of Charlotte Leblanc, who has been attending his classes, to edit his manuscript of the Bhagavad Gita. She becomes reluctant when she learns that Srila Prabhupada's philosophy is opposed to monism. Srila Prabhupada wants his own place, and on February 9th, he signs a lease with the manager of the same building to rent an office room. There we go, February 9th. On February 23rd, Srila Prabhupada forms the International Institution for God Consciousness. Did you know that? On February 23rd, he forms the International Institution for God Consciousness.
When did Prabhupada change that to Krishna consciousness?
That's later when they, because this is, he formed it, who knows how far he went into the legal establishment of it, but he formed it, and later on when he moved into 26 2nd Avenue is when he officially founded legally the ISKCON.
Right after he moved in, July
Yeah.
66.
Yeah. So he forms the International Institution for God Consciousness, and he enrolls 7 of the people who are attending his classes. One of these is Harvey Cohen, who introduces Srila Prabhupada to Paul Murray, another young man seeking spiritual knowledge. In March, Srila Prabhupada's room is burgled. His tape recorder, typewriter, and book bag are stolen. Within days, Srila Prabhupada moves to a loft at 94 Bowery, which he shares with that boy, Paul Murray. He's the one that went nuts one day, and Prabhupada had to run for his life. I think he had a knife or something. He was on LSD and he freaked out. So while he is obligated to give a month's notice at his present location, he changes the venue of his classes on April 1st. And he travels downtown for each meeting. So it begins Wednesday the 19th of January, New York. This is now from his diary. NY. By the grace of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, an encouraging letter is received today from Sir Padampat Singhania of Kanpur, India, Temple Hopeful. To see the publication Sale Office, U.S. Government Office of Education, 110 Livingston Street, Buro House Station, phone number 596-3106. Seen Mr. L. Mehotra at the New India House, submitted Chandrasekhar's case for transfer of his office in New York. He said to consider 2 sets of books taken back from Paragon Book Gallery. Taken back. This makes altogether 7 sets taken back. Balance with them 18 sets. Thursday, 20th of January, New York. Bon Maharaj's letter replied, and he is requested to see Dr. Radhakrishnan for sanction of exchange. Now everything depends on the supreme will of the Lord Sri Krishna. Sir Padampat Singhania replied, Chandrasekhar replied, and asked to send 1 set Bhagavatam to Sir Padampat Singhania. Friday, 21st January, New York. Postage, 25 cents. Sugar, etc., 90 cents. Total, $1.15. Letter received from C.C., Doctor of Bombay. He has gone back from his promise. This is not good. Better late than never. Mr. Bogart asked me to see him on Monday morning in his office, 866 United Nations Plaza. You know where that is? You've been there. Saturday, how far did you live from there?
I mean, pretty far, like 125.
Blocks. Okay.
Yeah. It's at 42nd.
Okay.
And I was up at 172, so I
Oh, you have a whole image of the map of Manhattan.
You have to learn it well.
Yeah, that's where Prajna works, is at, at the UN. And you went to Rutgers.
Yeah.
He was a professor there.
Oh.
Sanskrit and Indology. You two never crossed paths.
You never met him. Very interesting. Nice person. He came to see Gurudev in New Jersey the first time when Gurudev came at the end of his U.S. tour in 96. Very nice, polite. I always liked Pradumna. So now Saturday the 22nd of January, New York. Salt, 15 cents. Banana, 22 cents. Total, 37 cents. Letter sent to Surya Kumar Joshi of AICC office for help in getting sanction. So, also letter sent to Beni Bhushan Datta if he can help in this matter. The cleaner sent by Nina came to doctor's apartment and cleaned it. I gave him some cold drink and he was glad. Sunday, 23rd January. New York. Today, due to snowfall, the whole day I did not go either to Dr. Mishra's apartment nor outside the studio. Managed my things here in the studio. No expenditure today. Monday, 24th January. To see Mr. Larry Bogart morning 9 a.m. Saw Mr. Larry Bogart in his office. He advised me to write to Mr. Felix Morrow for an appointment to see. So I am writing him and sending some literature of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bus fare, 30 cents. Tuesday, 25th January, New York. Received letter from Mrs. Sally Agarwal, 603 North Walnut Street, Dover, Ohio, intimating that she is taking my book to her new residence. So they were moving, I guess, to Ohio. It appears that she has not received my letter dated 18/1/66. Decided to purchase one tape recorder, Martel, from the Advertisement Times of New York. No expenditure today. One set of books taken by Mrs. Milopsky. She promises to pay on Thursday, 27/1/66. This is how Prabhupada is eking out his existence. Lectures delivered in the studio on the test of spiritual realization. It means no more any artificial demand for the body and mind. People appreciate it. No expenditure today. Wednesday, 26 January, New York. Meeting at the church at 4 West 76th Street at 7 p.m. I wonder if that was the church where that one African-American guy met. The following letters dispatched. Number 1, Sally Agarwal, 603 North Walnut Street, regarding books, Dover, Ohio. Number 2, Mrs. H. Satley, Bureau of Libraries, 110 Livingston Street, Brooklyn, New York, regarding books. Number 3, Dr. Seymour Firsch, Asia Society, 112 East 64th Street, New York City, regarding books. Went to see the tape recorder. Found no good. Expenditure. Butter, 44 cents. One set book sold. Bus fare, 30 cents. At the Universalist Church of Divine Fraternity, Central Park West at 76th Street, New York. Total, 74 cents. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
These were cheap, huh?
No, because the value
that time.
It's just it's corresponding, same thing. Because in those days, a person might make, if they had a decent job, like $100 per week.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that was good money in those days. $1 was $1. I remember when I was growing up in, you know, the early 50s, that we had a shop, a candy store, and in that candy store you could buy things for a penny, and a nickel, and a dime was a lot, actually. You could go, we had near to my grade school, we had a ice cream, like, you know, one of the traditional ice cream fountain stores, where you go in and they have booths and they make ice cream sundaes and malted milkshakes and all of that. It was like right across the street from my grade school. And we could go there for 10 cents and get a big ice cream milkshake type thing. Yeah, so it, you know, it's all relative. Yeah,
Prabhupada
it wasn't
said
cheap.
it's very expensive in New York, right? For him when he arrived.
Yeah, compared to India. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think the exchange rate at that time with the Indian rupee, I mean the Indian rupee could buy so many US dollars at that time also. Alright, Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaudam Gandhar Vikadhari Radha Govinda Jiu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's New York Diary Ki Jai, Jai Srila Prabhupada's coming to the West and saving the whole world Ki Jai. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo